Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max. සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න. Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max. සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න.
නැවුම් සුවඳින් පිරි නව රින් වෙළඳපොලේ අඩුම මිලකට.
Tonight, GSP Plus commitments. The European Union says their assessment on progress made by Sri Lanka on GSP Plus commitments will be out by year-end. Misappropriations. National Audit Office reveals that the Central Cultural Fund unnecessarily spent between 38 to 58% of its expenditure on employee maintenance during years 2015 to 2019. Watchdogs. Parliament announces new members of the Committee on Public Enterprises. Former COPE chairman Charita Herath says exclusion from list shows government's push towards corruption. All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Monday the 3rd of October 2022.
Vim Deara milliliter CA Smart Pack එක රුපියල් 85ට දැන් වෙළඳ පොලේ.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. I'm Andrew Bernard. Now the European Union announced that it is currently reviewing steps taken by the Sri Lankan government towards GSP Plus commitments. Issuing a statement, European Union President Ursula von der Leyen also commented that the efforts taken by the Sri Lankan government to restore normalcy and stability in the country. Issuing a statement to congratulate President Ranil Wickremesinghe on his appointment, President of the European Union Ursula von der Leyen assured that the EU region will continue to support the Sri Lankan government to successfully overcome the crisis. She added that the EU will remain committed to support Sri Lanka's efforts to overcome the crisis, including the necessary reforms that will bring the country back to a path of inclusive prosperity and lasting national reconciliation. In this process, she stresses that freedom of expression and assembly, dialogue among all stakeholders, as well as respect for the rule of law and fundamental rights will remain essential. The EU president also made reference to the assessment by the European Union on the progress made by Sri Lanka on GSP Plus commitments. She stated that the European Union will assess the progress made on Sri Lanka's GSP Plus commitments very soon. The report is scheduled to be released towards the latter part of this year on early 2023. She also commended the Sri Lankan government's efforts to introduce and steer policies that will ensure short to long-term interests of all Sri Lankans and to address the devastating effects of the unprecedented economic downturn. Ursula von der Leyen meanwhile highlighted the Sri Lankan government's negotiations with international financial institutions and creditors as a commendable effort. The Minister of Power and Energy, Kanchana Wijesekara, today defended the ministry's move to reduce prices of petrol and not diesel, as the government has not made a significant profit, although global crude prices fell. The minister said they were able to reduce prices of petrol because the government has a profit margin of 70 rupees and was not able to do the same within diesel because the government only makes a profit of 1 rupee.
When international crude prices reduce, petrol products can't be the only petroleum product to have a price reduction. Diesel prices too should reduce.
We consider world crude prices and the Singapore Platts average when revising fuel prices. Right now we have a profit of 1 rupee when issuing diesel, but we are unable to reduce diesel prices by about 10 to 15 rupees because we won't have the necessary funds to import the diesel requirement for the next month. We were able to reduce petrol prices because we had a profit of 70 rupees when importing in recent times. However, we cannot base our retail price on crude oil alone because we don't fulfill the full requirement from our crude oil refinery.
A-level students say that they have only 98 days to prepare for the exam, but last year and before students had 200 days or more to prepare for the exam. They are requesting for at least 2 more months to prepare for the exam.
The problem you have highlighted only affects students who are sitting for their second and third attempts. Last year, students sitting for their second and third try had only 2 months and 2 weeks. If the exams are postponed by 2 months until February, one of the problems we will face is that it clashes with the school syllabus and we will have to close 10,000 schools. If this happens, the next problem will be that it will be too close to the GC ordinary level examinations in April. I will request the exam department to do their best to make any changes to the exam schedule to accommodate the request of students in a way that it won't be unfair to other students. Now, the Speaker of Parliament today released the list of parliamentarians who will serve as members of Parliamentary Committee on Public Enterprises and the Committee on Public Accounts. Accordingly, Jagat Pushpakumara, Janaka Vakkumara, Lohan Ratwatta, Indika Anuruddha Herath, D.V. Chanaka, Shanta Bandara, Andru Kumara Dissanayaka, Rauf Hakim, Patali Champika Ranawaka, Mahindananda Aludgamage, Rohita Abegunawardana, Dr. Harsha De Silva, Eran Vikramaratna, Nimal Lanza, S.M.M. Muzaraf, Nalin Bandara Jayamaha, S.M.M. Marikar Mujibur Rahman, Rohini Kumari Vijay Ratna, Sanjeeva Edriman, Jagat Kumara Sumarati, Premanath C. Dolavatta, Upul Mahendra Rajapaksa, Shanakyan Rajaputram Rasamanikam, Rajika Vikramasinghe, Madhura Vitanage, Professor Ranjit Bandara have been appointed to the Committee on Public Enterprises. A notable exclusion from the list, however, is Dr. Charita Herath, the former chairman of the COPE. Members of the COPA, meanwhile, include Mohan Priyadarshana De Silva, Lasanta Alagiyavanna, K. Khada Mastan, Dr. Sugan Raghavan, Diana Gamage, S.B. Dissanayaka, Tissa Attanayaka, Kabir Hashim, Dr. Sarath Veerasekara, Vimalavira Dissanayaka, Niroshan Pereira, Dr. Sudarshani Fernando Pulde, J.C. Aluvia, Ashok Abesinghe, Buddhika Patirana, Jayanta Samaravira, Hector Apuhami, Hesha Vitanage, Dr. Major Pradeep Isuru Dodangoda, Vasanta Yapha Bandara, Professor Charita Herath and Dr. Harini Amarasurya. Now, the Sri Lanka Freedom Party commended the parties that have not decided to be a part of the National Council set by the government. Issuing a statement, the SLFP says the National Council will not be of any use as it was established to merely showcase the international community that Sri Lanka is politically stable. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party, in a media statement yesterday, reaffirmed their decision to not partake in the all-party government and the National Council. SLFP Chairman Maithripala Sirisena said in a statement that President Ranil Wickremesinghe should have first appointed the National Council before proceeding to appointing a Prime Minister and the Cabinet. The party said that this was the reason behind its refusal to be part of the National Council. Moreover, the SLFP claims that the purpose of the National Council is only to showcase to the international community that Sri Lanka is politically stable through the establishment of an all-party government. Furthermore, they warn that the National Council will not deliver justice to the people's uprisings that took place across the country. Meanwhile, the Sri Lanka Freedom Party went on to say that the all-party government concept and the proposed National Council are alternative methods to secure their political stability. As such, the SLFP offered their party's commendation and their respect to all the parties that decided not to participate in the National Council. Stay with us for more news on the other side of this short break.
අයිනෝ පුතා හැබැයි යා ගෙදර නිදියන්නෙම අමුතු තැනක.
කාලගුණය කොහොමුණත් රයිනෝ නං වහලට සේෆ් තමයි මුළු ගෙදරම. Rhino Cement Roofing Sheets. Then you know Rhino. I know.
Big 3.
Uber Eats මගින් ඉදිරිපත් කරන ආදරයෙන් අවශ්‍යතා ඇති අයට අත්‍යවශ්‍ය භාණ්ඩ පරිත්‍යාග කිරීමට වේදිකාවක්.
Welcome back. Getting back to you with a previous story, Deputy Leader of the United National Party, Akila Viraj Karivasam, defended the need for appointment of more cabinet ministers, saying it is the necessity for the government to move forward despite criticism. However, the Sri Lanka Freedom Party chairman Maithripala Sirisena says that this is a tragedy, as the current ministers are also a burden to the people.
දැන් මේ අධ්‍යාරක්ෂිත කලාප ගැසට් පත්‍රය රිවර්ස් කරගන්න.
වැරදි වැඩ කරන්න ගියාම එහෙම කරන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා. ඉතින් ජනතාවට අවශ්‍ය දේවල් නිසා ජනතා විරෝධී දේවල් කළොත් ඉතින් ආපස්සට යන්න වෙනවා.
නැවත වතාවක් මේ කැබිනට් අමාත්‍ය ධූර දෙන්න යනවා කියලා තියෙන ආරංචියක්.
ඔව් ඉතින් දැනට අලුතෙන් දෙන ඒවා නෙවෙයි. ඉතින් දැන් දීලා තියෙන ඒවා ජනතාවට වරක් නැහැ. ඉතින් ඒක මහා ඛේදවාචකයක් කැමතිකම් වැඩි කරනවායි කියන එක.
ඇමතිවරු පත් කිරීම පිළිබඳව විවේචන තිබ්බා. ඒවා විවේචන తీරව වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි ප්‍රශ්නේ තියෙන්නේ මෙතුමාට යන්න වෙලා තියෙන්නේ මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ බහුතරයත් අරගෙන එළියෙන් ඇවිල්ලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුව වලට අරගෙන යන්න පුළුවන් කමක් නැහැ. ඒ නිසා මේ කණ්ඩායම් එක්ක මේ පක්ෂවල ඉල්ලීම් මත යන්න වෙලා තියෙනවා. හැබැයි එතුමාගේ අවසාන අරමුණ පරමාර්ථය හොඳයි. ජනතාවට ඇති වෙලා තියෙන පීඩනය, ජනතාවට ඇති වෙලා තියෙන අමාරුකම්ගෙන් මුදවා ගැනීම සඳහා සැලැස්ම ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්න යනවා. IMF අරමුදල දැන් ඒකට හොඳ සුබවාදී ප්‍රතිචාර ලැබිලා ඒවා ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්න පටන් අරන් තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම මෑතකදී කිසිම දවසක පෙට්‍රල් රුපියල් 40කින් අඩු කරපු යුගයක් මට නම් මතක නැහැ. ඒ නිසා මේ කාර්යය ජනාධිපතිවරයා ප්‍රමුඛ ආණ්ඩුවට කරන්න දෙන්න.
ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අර්ධනවල කිසිදු සතයක් හම්බ වෙන්නේ නැහැ 2023 අයවැය ලේඛන ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න කලින්. අද කියලා. උන් බලනවා මේ අයවැය ලේඛනී. තව කොච්චර බදු ආදායම් වැඩි කරන්න සැලසුම් කරලා තිබෙනවද? තව කොච්චර වියදම් අඩු කරන්න සහන කප්පාදු කරන්න සැලසුම් කරලා තිබෙනවද කියන එක ඔවුන් සැලකිලිට භාජනය කරනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? ආදායම් වැඩි කරන්න තියෙන එකම මාවත බවට දැන් පත් වෙලා තිබෙන්නේ තව බදු.
Now, the Central Cultural Fund had spent over 38 to 56% of its total expenditure on maintenance of its employees during the period spanning from 2015 to 2019, resulting in lower financial resources allocated for key objectives of the fund. Meanwhile, during year 2019, salary expenses of over 580 million rupees were incurred by the fund for recruitments made by the Department of Archaeology although such requirements were not mandated to the fund. A special report on the operations of the Central Cultural Fund went into detail on the several instances of mismanagement, including misallocating financial resources and manpower which have hindered the Central Fund from achieving its defined goals and objectives. The report also pointed out that the construction of 86 buildings valued at rupees 97,566 have been suspended.
The National Audit Office recently released a special audit report on the operations of the Central Cultural Fund for the period spanning 2015 to 2019. The report highlighted billions of rupees worth of financial mishandling during the tenure of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa as the Minister of Housing, Construction and Cultural Affairs. According to the report, the fund spent 38% to 58% of its total expenditure on employee maintenance, while a lower percentage of funds were allocated to achieve its key objectives of excavation and conservation of archaeological sites during 2015 to 2019. Further, in recruitment of staff for the fund, significant issues including recruitments made exceeding the approved cadre and those made for posts outside the composition of staff relating to the scheme of recruitment were observed by the report. On the 17th of October 2017, the Board of Governors had granted approval for the recruitment of 3,401 employees to the Department of Archaeology, including 2,271 archaeology assistants and 1,130 watchers. While provisions had not been made to any government institution to make recruitments on behalf of another government institution, the fund had recruited employees as archaeology assistants and watchers for the Department of Archaeology and paid salaries of 479,356,993 for the year 2018 and 581,773,108 rupees as at the 31st of December 2019. In the year 2019, the report noted that the fund earned a total of 4.037 billion rupees while spending 4.168 billion rupees, leading to a deficit of 0.131 billion rupees. Construction work of 28 buildings at phase 1 of construction, valued at 97,566,000, were assigned to the State Development and Construction Corporation, along with 123 buildings valued at 428,593,500 rupees at phase 2 of construction. However, according to the report, only 77 buildings have been completed from the ones assigned, with 86 buildings in their third phase, valued at 97,566,000 being suspended.
Now, the UK's sterling climbed higher today after British Finance Minister Kwasi Kwarteng said the government should reverse a plan to scrap the UK's highest rate of income tax, while the yen weakened past the key level of 145 per dollar. The yen's fall today came after Finance Minister Shunichi Suzuki said Japan stood ready for decisive steps in the foreign exchange market if excessive yen moves persisted.
The pound touched a one-week high of $1.128 and was last up 0.27% to $1.11955, surging nearly 1% after reports of the economic policy U-turn were publicised by UK's Finance Minister Kwasi Kwarteng. The move comes at a time when, as recently as Sunday, Prime Minister Liz Truss reiterated that the government was sticking with its policies. Meanwhile, in Asia, the Japanese yen fell to 145.40 per dollar, weakening past the 145 per dollar for the first time in more than a week after the government intervened to prop up the currency. It was last seen 0.2% lower at 145.10, with trading in Asia thinned amid holidays in China, South Korea and some Australian states. The Australian and New Zealand dollars, meanwhile, gained ground ahead of expected rate hikes by their central banks during the week. The Australian dollar was up 0.5% at 0.6443 US dollars, while the New Zealand dollar was up 0.2% at 0.5655 US dollars. The euro was marginally lower at 0.9765 US dollars, with expectations of another very high European Central Bank rate hike this month, following a red-hot inflation readout, heightening worries that the economy would be tipped into a recession. The US dollar index fell 0.05% to 112.19.
Now, the all-share price index closed in red as a result of price losses in counters such as Expo Lanka Holdings, Valuable One and Lanka IOC, with the turnover crossing 2.5 billion. A similar behavior was witnessed in the S&P SL20. Market halted during the day due to the S&P SL20 index dropping over 5% from the previous close. High net worth and institutional investor participation was noted in Aitken Spence, John Keel's Holdings and CIC Holdings. Mixed interest was observed in Lanka IOC, Expo Lanka Holdings and ACL Cables, whilst retail interest was noted in SMB Leasing, Browns Investments and Renuka Agri-Foods. Foreign participation in the market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net buyers. Now, while other major currencies showed fluctuations owing to several macroeconomic movements worldwide, the value of the Sri Lankan rupee remains at 362.9 cents against the greenback, as the central bank maintains a soft peg on the US dollar over the past few weeks. Now, let's take a look at how some of the currencies worldwide faced against the Sri Lankan rupee. Now, at least 125 people have died in a stampede at an Indonesian football match. Football fans are demanding answers over policing after the match between the two rival clubs turned into one of the worst disasters in sports history. On Saturday night, thousands of fans rushed to the pitch after their home team lost a game at the Kanjuruhan Stadium in East Java. Police responded by firing tear gas. It is reported that the stampede took place as panic spread when police tear gassed the unruly fans and thousands pushed towards the stadium's exit. At least 125 people were killed and more than 300 others were injured. Among the dead were 32 children. Mourners gathered outside the football stadium in Indonesia's Malangang today to pay tribute to the victims. Indonesian police and sports officials have been sent to Malangang for investigations, as this is considered as one of the world's deadliest stadium disasters. And that's all the news we have for this evening. Join us again tomorrow at the same time. Good night.